I have zoomed way out here are the 12 practices that I think Elon Musk does in all of Elon Musk's companies. And it's zoomed way out here, and each one is a 3-hour workshop. But what I'd like to do is give a summary of how they work by using SpaceX as the example. Agile at SpaceX by example. I'm Joe Justice. I was a developer at Microsoft. I did get to work directly with Bill Gates and learned a lot from Bill. That was just very, very lucky. I did found a car company in 2006, Wikispeed, and I used Agile methods because those were the only methods I knew. I didn't know waterfall. And it worked. Wikispeed ended up setting 4 world records, which was a surprise to me as much as anybody. It didn't become a massive cash generator. It spent about as much money as it made. But it became a famous example that hardware can be developed, built, and approved for governments in 1 week or less, which is ultimately the speed we achieved, 1 week iterations of cars, including the certification. That got me to work in Amazon when Jeff Bezos was CEO, and also to give talks in Google, etc. And ultimately, I became an employee at Tesla. And while I was an employee at Tesla, I journaled each morning and each evening and made videos and took photos to try to understand how Elon runs a company, because there was no Agile in Tesla. And it was even faster than my Agile car company, and with a much higher volume. I was working with the Tesla teams, making thousands of cars a day, and everyone, whether you think you're a software developer or a mechanical engineer, you also work physically every day. So that's why there's not remote work. It's because you are also participating physically building. So I physically helped build thousands of Tesla cars, mostly in California. And while I was there, I visited SpaceX often. I was not a SpaceX employee, but with my Tesla badge, employee badge, I was able to have access to many areas in SpaceX. I'll zoom way in here, if I can. My internet's a little laggy. Why SpaceX? SpaceX posted 1,000 changes in hardware to the largest rocket ever made, it's called Starship, in 69 days. Most companies aren't done planning one hardware change in 69 days, and SpaceX completed 1,000. And I'd like to try to show how you could do it if you wanted to, and what to do next. Whether you own a company or want to create a company, or if you work at somewhere inside a company, what you would do next if you wanted to get 1,000 changes done, tested, approved for use by the governments in 69 days. Elon Musk retweeted one of my presentations, an earlier version of this presentation. He is a successful CEO. The most sold car in the world is a Tesla Model Y. The fastest growing aerospace company in the world is SpaceX. The fastest growing embedded medical device company is Neuralink, another Musk property. The fastest growing social networking app is X, formerly Twitter. In multiple domains, Elon Musk is successful. Elon insisted that CEOs and workers should all be workers. The ideal organization is one in which all employees and self-organized teams create products, rather than requiring the presence of a manager to lead the organization. This can be seen in terms of financial efficiency. If, as you approach 100% of workforce directly engineering on the product or service, you cannot financially compete with that. If you're paying half of your total employees to be managers or even agile coaches, anything that's not directly engineering on the product or service, you are less financially efficient. So how does Elon make a company operate without Agile coaches and without managers. I'm going to start with some pictures and renderings from where I worked and then try to explain how SpaceX operates. This is from Tesla. The first step is modularity. Instead of thinking about a whole car or a whole rocket or a whole piece of software, in a Musk company, it's split into modules. Each module can have new versions introduced that are compatible with the previous version of all the other ones. So you can change any one of these at any time without having any coordination meetings with any other team, as long as the interface still connects. This lets the company run in parallel speed, parallel processing, instead of sequential speed, sequential processing. I'm going to try to explain how this is the necessary first step. Modular architecture, Agile architecture. That lets you split something as complex as a car into a module, a piece that's the size that one team of 3 to 5 people can make a meaningful improvement and test it in less than a day. That is fundamental to the level of excitement in working in a Musk company. When I've worked with Mercedes-Benz, when I've worked with Toyota, when I've worked with Volkswagen Group, when I've worked with Nissan, when I've worked with Honda, they all have 5 or 7 year hardware development plans. And as an engineer, it's different to stay excited over a 5 or 7 year project. Sometimes the projects never make it into production, and you have invested 5 to 7 years of your limited life into that already. In a Musk company, because you're working on a module, you can make an improvement, test it, and put it in production in less than a day. And it's an extremely exciting place to work. Side effects are you can have more work happening in the same sized building, in the same factory, and it's more space efficient, actually far more than these numbers. These numbers reported by Tesla are very conservative. That also means the way you produce the thing can change. A waterfall manufacturing cycle, you have phases of vehicle production because you don't have any changes to the vehicle for another 5 or 7 years. If you split your vehicle into modules, you can use what's called extreme manufacturing. You can be building all of these modules at the same time, and then you have robotic integration events. And everything we've learned in software about continuous integration and continuous delivery works here too. So we have automated testing, we have robotics picking up whatever the new version of the module is, and the robots try to put them together. You automate integration, and you have integration running constantly. And if any module fails to integrate, it goes back to the team that designed it. It's their job, not a separate integration team. So the team that made it can learn, just like we do in software. Which is called extreme manufacturing, which is a workshop all on its own. By the way, that is a workshop that I get to do here on Polish time zone. You can contact Bolan through Procognita for Agile hardware development and JoeDX for extreme manufacturing. This works so well that Toyota just started doing it. 3 weeks ago, my work with Toyota got to be more public. Toyota has their first step of modularity. They have 3 modules now. Now the problem with 3 modules is they're so big that they still have waterfall planning, budgeting, testing for each of those 3 modules. There's thousands and thousands of people working on each of those 3 modules. You need a much higher module count and good AI assistance to have 3 to 5 people be able to own a module. So the module count is not high enough. The modules aren't small enough yet. But Toyota is already loving that they can introduce innovation at any time in these 3 pieces. These pieces don't have to wait to all be introduced at once. And that has already dropped their development cost by half and their factory investment by half. So even with only 3 modules, it's a phenomenal success for traditional manufacturing at Toyota. this is what's called Justice's law. The modules of the system define the structure of your company. If you have a testing group or a QA group, then every part has to wait in line for that central service. So ideally, each module has their own QA and their own testing, so they don't wait in line. The structure of your company, ideally, is the same as the number of modules you have. So if you have 13 modules, ideally you have 13 business units, each with their own budget, their own design, their own test, and they can deploy independently from each other. That's the optimum speed. And the second part of Justice's law is to try to balance the number of teams and modules. It doesn't help you if you have 11 modules that can be designed and built at the same time and you only have 10 teams. Or the other way, it doesn't help you to have 11 teams but only 10 modules. So ideally these two, more modules is better, more teams are better, but we need to keep them in sync. If we can only afford 10 teams, then we don't want 11 modules yet. But more modules is better. Here are the actual modules of the Tesla Semi. This is the most capable heavy haul electric truck in production in the world, and these are the actual modules. I'm going to zoom in on two and explain how project management works without any project managers. These boards had no name when I worked in Tesla. When I introduce these in other companies, I do call them justice boards. If you search for hashtag justice board, you see examples of different companies setting these up. What inspired me about these was the boards at Tesla that did not have a name. These boards show key progress indicators for each module in real time. What's important is that the data collection is automatic. There's no humans measuring something. It's all cameras and then auto-labeling what the cameras see. And these boards are not then published from humans looking at a report. They're automatically published from the data that's automatically recorded. So there's no human in the loop. And the last part that seems to be very important, everyone can see them. Anyone in the company can see them on your phone all the time and on monitors all over all the buildings at all the time. So there's not some privileged management group that can see these or make their own reports based on the data to prove their own agenda. Because of that, there's no management. There's no group with more information than anyone else. Everyone can see the same information. And here's what that information is when you zoom in. Per module, how much does it cost to make it right now? This is automatically recorded. And the automatic recording is not perfect. Sometimes it makes mistakes. But it's better than humans that we wait on to guess how much it costs, which can be manipulated depending on an agenda. So this is completely automatic. So how much it costs to make that module. In this case, this is the heat pump, the center display. I'll zoom in here on the Tesla Semi. That's this part here in red. The center display and the computers that run it. This is the actual data, the cost to produce it per day, the weight in kilograms of all those modules together, and the power they draw in watts. The goal of the team working on that module is to improve those numbers every day if they can. They can do anything they want. There is no central project management. There is no central budgeting. They can do anything that's cost efficient, and they can see their own cost efficiency. They can see if they invest €1 million in a robot, did that increase the efficiency of that part? Did it reduce the cost or the power draw or the weight? And if it didn't, they know they made an inefficient move. And they're asked to manage themselves. Digital self-management. So I couldn't find any project management. And later I'll show you where SpaceX admits they have no project management. Instead, they use these boards and digital self-management. You can see hashtag DSM all over x.com and videos and photos of other companies attempting to replicate this success. So if all of us were on the module team for the center display, we would all work together to try to reduce the cost by 1 penny today. Not 5 years from now, today. What change can we make to make the cost go down by a penny? Can we save a gram somewhere? Can we make the weight go down by a gram or more? Can we reduce the power draw by a milliwatt or more? And we're all thinking about that every day. What that means is we don't need any approvals. We know what the goal is. There's no one to ask. There's no valuable question we could ask anyone other than each other. It's like playing a big open world video game. If you know what the goal is or the quest is, you don't need a project management office or even an Agile coach telling you what to do next in the video game. If you can see the quest, you open world explore it. And working in a Musk company felt a lot like that. Very gamified. The next module is the heat pump system. And these are all the cooling lines that go through and around the battery pack as the battery pack cools itself and heats itself, and the cabin heats and cools itself. So this is like a completely separate company, the heat pump company. And this is the same heat pump used in all Tesla products. Here we're seeing it on the Semi. It's the same on all the Tesla products. So if we improve it, all Tesla products improve. And here's what it looks like. Version 1 was a heating and cooling system like almost every car or truck parked outside. This is what they almost all look like. Many of these parts are purchased from vendors. Version 2 was far lighter and far smaller. This made a lot of empty space around it, allowing other modules to grow and giving us room to grow. And version 3 is like the size of a shoebox. It's like a toy. It costs truly pennies to make. It's almost all the same material. The number of operations to build it are trivially short. None of this waited for a new car to be introduced. It was simply put in the next car built because the connection points were made compatible. The interface was compatible. Most companies would not change the heating and cooling system until the next version of their product. In a Musk company, this is like a separate company, this module team, the heat pump team. And they eliminated more than 100 subcomponents. Here's what these teams actually do. They don't start by drawing 3D models. They actually start by physically making one that they hope is better. So we have knives, and we're scraping plastic. We have drills, and we're drilling aluminum. We're bending bars of sheet metal. We're melting plastic with heat guns and ovens. We start by making one. This really increases your engineering skill. Can you actually make it? You're not even drawing it yet. You start by making it. While you're making it, another member of the same mob team is attempting to program robots to make what you're making by hand, what you're making manually. Most companies wait until they have an approved design, and then there's a separate phase to start programming robots. The value is getting really good at programming robots, so you never stop. You know there's going to be a better version, maybe in 12 hours, but you're programming the robots anyway to make what's here now, so you get really good at programming robots. So as the prototypes are being made, even before they're approved or even before everything works, you, in your same group, are programming robots to start automating the production. Now, someone is drawing it in 3D, but they're actually not drawing the part. They're drawing the machines that make the part, and they animate those machines until those machines take a drawn block of plastic and melt it and squish it and drill it and cut it into the 3D model of the heat pump. So you don't actually draw a heat pump. You get good enough bit by bit by bit at animating manufacturing processes that the manufacturing processes take sheet metal drawings and plastic block drawings and make the part that you're making by hand. And that makes really high quality engineers, really high quality drawings. And you're done when you have automated manufacturing and testing. And the goal is to try to go through this whole loop 12 hours or that's the wish. When I was working in Tesla in 2020, it was faster than that. Some teams were going through this whole loop every 45 minutes. The charge port on the Model 3 changed multiple times a day. The metal connections from the charge port to the battery pack that allow it to take more electricity at once and charge faster, in some cases changed multiple times a day. I've never seen a hardware company go that fast except for Team Wikispeed, which was a small startup. We had no name for this in Tesla. When I introduce this to other companies, I call it hashtag Mob AI. That is Mob as defined by Woody Zuhl, group work with a driver and a navigator and a mobber role, assisted by AI. Mob AI adds in-house trained AI, your own AI tools, to add quality and speed to your group work. Some of you write software with AI assistance right now, and we actually don't write much software anymore. We copy and paste it from the AI. We collaboratively work with the AI. This lets people who don't have that much coding experience still be part of a group that can generate really good code. Well, Tesla has tools that are that good for 3D drawing of physical parts and designing new electric motors, new paint processes, new manufacturing processes. So you have autocomplete AI tools, letting people who are even new to that process make meaningful improvements every day. It's not all AI. There's definitely humans doing the work, but it's heavily AI assisted. The mobs start with over 100,000 people every day at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Then they self-organize into groups of about 50, and then the ideal size of 3 to 5, working on sub-modules. If mobs share an interface, they choose to work within 3 meters of each other. At Tesla and SpaceX, all mobs are on-site, even software, as they are expected to help with physical work too. Virtual mobs are almost as fast and possible if your product is virtual. Oh, okay. Oh, only here there's a pop-up, not there. Hashtag Mob AI is ideal for 3 to 5 people. Mob works well with any composition of skill. All new people are highly creative. The AI tools let us make progress within a 12-hour shift. At Tesla, we would mob on emails, contracts, programming, CAD, even physical work like assembling robots or building cars. All work was Mob AI. Here is a mob team in Europe, in Berlin, about to start working physically. So we're not able to do remote work on physical things like cars. Here are groups of mobs at Neuralink. If mobs share an interface, they choose to work within 3 meters of each other. So they don't need coordination meetings. They can hear if the interfaces are likely to change. Tesla has now combined all their AI into one product called Tesla One. When I worked in Tesla in 2020, the Tesla AIs had no name. And there were different ones. There were different AIs that were trained on how to help you program paint robots. And that was different than the AI that would help you design new airbag installations and safety systems. Well, they've all been connected now as Tesla One. What that means is if we're designing a new electric motor, the AIs that have been trained on every design version of Tesla motors and all the simulations that have gone into making Tesla motors are auto-completing your engineering. They're finishing your drawings for you and saying you probably want the magnets to be positioned this way. You likely want to be using these materials. And these AIs are fed by these massive farms that are continuously running hardware tests. These farms never stop. There's no test phase. The farms just get bigger and bigger and bigger. What they're testing is how different materials interact with each other. If you have two different kinds of metal in a magnetic field and it's really cold, what happens? What happens in 10 years? What happens with accelerated aging in 100 years? What if we add an enormous amount of electricity through them? What if they get really hot, then really cold while they're shaking? This material data directly feeds the Tesla AIs, and even in 2020, the Tesla AIs had generated the most efficient electric motors ever made, including in universities, including prototype university electric motors. They were less efficient than the production motors in a Tesla car you could buy. And SpaceX did the same thing. SpaceX rocket engines are the highest output rocket engines ever made, including any university ever. And it's because there's this powerful in-house software that's part of Tesla One. So we have these justice boards and digital self-management that let these teams self-organize to reduce the cost to make the car 30% in 4 years. That's the same car. That's not a new model version. Most companies try to keep the cost of making the same product from going up, or try to control how quickly the cost goes up. In Tesla, the cost actually goes down. In SpaceX as well, the cost per rocket launch goes down every launch. And that also affects the customer. The charge times go down. Over a 5-year period, the time it takes to charge a Tesla is 30% less than it was 5 years ago, through software optimizations and optimizations of the charging network. The factory too. So how many labor hours it takes to produce a vehicle? Because there's not a Kaizen event to improve the manufacturing process once a year or once a week. Instead, it's each of the module team's job to improve the manufacturing process every day, or to try to. That means the manufacturing process does improve every day. So you can see each day, not each model introduction, but each day, the vehicle output climbs while the labor hours per vehicle go down. The fundamental efficiency of the factory ramps up. This is unique to Tesla. Other companies have Kaizen or Kaikaku events once a year that might affect the manufacturing line at the quickest. The manufacturing line is thought to not change until the next approved product. The goal is for 100% of staff to be engineers, directly improving the products and services. Amazingly, this works in automotive at Tesla, pure software at X, construction at the Boring Company, medical devices at Neuralink, and aerospace at SpaceX. SpaceX made 1,000 changes to the largest rocket ever made in 69 days. Now that you've seen the pictures that we have access to from Tesla, let's look at SpaceX. I hope it makes more sense now. Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook famously disagrees with Elon about a lot of things, and Elon disagrees with Mark. But Mark credits Elon Musk with kicking off the tech trend of firing middle managers when other CEOs were a little shy. That's not actually exactly true. There never were middle managers. Twitter, Musk bought Twitter, so Musk fired all the middle managers. Okay, so that happened. But in SpaceX or the Boring Company or Neuralink or Tesla, there never were middle managers. So there was nobody to fire. Instead, there was modular division and digital self-management. Here's a job posting from Ted Malaska, Senior Director of Application Software at SpaceX. We are looking for outstanding engineers to work in a game-changing environment. No project managers, no Agile, by that, no Agile coaches or architects. No designer, and we are in the office every day, but you get to change the world and work on rockets. I'm gonna try to play a video in a separate window. We'll see if this channels well and if audio works. I'm gonna try. Remember, I tried to show in Tesla, it starts with modular parallel executing chunks, right? Now that you've seen that, maybe you can see it in SpaceX. And the video, if it works, will hopefully let us try that. So let's see what happens. And hopefully I have closed captions turned on because that's going to help us. Okay, ready to try? Sound's not coming through the laptop, and I think I know why. There's probably the share screen setting that I don't know where it is that says sound output. Help. Sorry. Sound output. HDMI. Okay, maybe. There's a chance. Ready to try again?
Okay. Hi, this is Joe Justice, former Tesla employee. I'm here at SpaceX in Boca Chica, Texas, and you can see behind me 3 Starship rockets and 1 booster. They're being built, designed and built with a different design each, approximately once per month. Now, the Starship program is independent from the booster program. They're like their own business. They're not dependent, waiting on each other. They have a known stable interface to mate, so they can be evolving at different rates. In fact, they are. The boosters are on a slower schedule than the Starships. Now, the Raptor engines on a separate development entirely, but they're shared by both. They're installed in both. So Raptor is run like its own company, like a supplier, but wholly owned by SpaceX. Now, the tank internal sections with the dome headers are common across the booster and the Starship, and they're made again by an independent work stream, so there's no waiting. As long as the interface inside the booster and the Starship stays consistent, the domes and the internal tanks are able to be built on an entirely separate cadence. This is the advantage of SpaceX agility and a speed in rocketry never seen before in the modern world.
Even though we don't have the same pretty pictures, can you start to imagine the modularity, the modules, the parallel execution in this huge rocket? And my apologies, the subtitles didn't generate. I think it's because the Wi-Fi that I'm on is a little slow. Sorry about that. But I hope you could understand me. It's easier with subtitles, with English subtitles. If you read Japanese, there were subtitles. Yeah. What's happened here is a fan on the internet has tried to draw those modules. So you have booster, and that's its own company making the boosters. And they're on a completely separate cadence than upper stage called Starship. Now they both have, it's hard to see here. This is a tank. And these actually are very complicated tanks. It's not as simple as this drawing. They have these tanks, these bottom halves and these top headers. And they're the same between booster and Starship. And they're made by this separate group, this tank company that works like a supplier. And Starship and booster take them as fast as they're ready, whatever the new latest version is. And they both use Raptor engines. And Raptor engines are designed and built every 2 days now. Designed and built every 2 days now because of heavy, heavy, heavy automation in the design and the testing and the building. Same with the tanks. Now an entire rocket upper stage can be designed and built every 3 days. That's like software speed. And these are the largest rockets ever made. Now the orbital launch table and the orbital launch tower are also teams that run. I don't have a picture of the actual SpaceX Justice Board, so I tried to summarize it here. We started with Tesla because you could see it. Here, I need you to imagine a little bit more. So it starts with a 1,000-year goal. For SpaceX, that goal is spread the light of consciousness out among the stars. Colonize other planets. That's the goal of SpaceX, colonize other planets. And Ted Malaska writes, Honestly, we don't think of the competition much here at SpaceX. It is more about the impossible goal of colonizing Mars that drives us. That's totally what I experienced in Tesla. We were not benchmarking Volkswagen electric cars. We didn't care. We were not benchmarking Toyota's hydrogen cars. We didn't care. We were trying to make an electric car so good that people wanted to buy it over a gasoline or a diesel car. Because the 1,000-year goal of Tesla is accelerate the transition to sustainable energy. That is the goal. And every engineer knows it, and they don't have to ask anyone for approval if they can make a better car. They simply try right away. SpaceX runs the same way. Then, under that 1,000-year goal, Elon helps everybody find what is the bottlenecking KPI. And for SpaceX, it's how much does it cost to get something to Mars. We could have the best farming equipment, the best Mars farming equipment ever, but if we can't afford to get it to Mars, we can't colonize Mars. The fundamental bottlenecking metric is how much does it cost to get a kilogram of something into low Earth orbit, and then the next metric under that is then how to get it to Mars. And because of this self-organization around this metric, which is automatically reported in real time, it's on everyone's phone, SpaceX has achieved the lowest cost per kilogram into orbit ever, and by an order of magnitude. No one else is even close. Entire countries aren't even close. Some of you follow military news, and militaries are asking SpaceX for help because SpaceX antennas are higher gain and more sensitive than the top secret military antennas. No one is even close to SpaceX tech stack. Not any Black Ops or James Bond project anywhere. They're all asking SpaceX, can we use your tech? Now, under that bottlenecking KPI are child KPIs that could possibly improve within 12 hours. That 3 to 5 people could possibly make this number get better within 12 hours. Those are numbers like 1 second or less reduction in manufacturing time. Can we speed up manufacturing of some part of the rocket by a second or more today? That's something a team of 3 to 5 motivated, excited people with AI tools might be able to do. 1 gram or more reduced rocket weight. 1 penny or more reduced rocket materials cost. Are we using less materials? 1 gram or more rocket thrust. And you saw that on Tesla's side, where we have images, this does improve every day for every module. And because of that, new rockets are in manufacturing production every single day. You don't learn by planning, you learn by building. So if we're on a design team, we're also building, and we're building every day. SpaceX never stops making another rocket. They don't wait to sell anything. They're always building rockets because pace of innovation is the only thing that matters. Tesla too, they're just constantly manufacturing cars so the people that are designing cars can manufacture them and learn. And you've seen the Justice Board from Tesla. I don't have a picture of the real Justice Board from SpaceX. That changes your sales strategy. You sell kilograms into orbit, not rockets. Every other aerospace company in the world sells rockets. The United Launch Alliance gets a satellite contract, and they build a rocket to put that satellite into space. Every other rocket company gets a contract, and they build a rocket for that contract. Instead, SpaceX sells kilograms into low Earth orbit, and you don't know which rocket it's going to ride on because the rockets are changing every day. Your sales strategy is then invest in iterating your production system, sell rides or licenses or the results of your production system. Your design and production system is your product. Many aerospace companies iterate or upgrade their systems when they are awarded a new contract. Musk self-funds an entire new launch system, an entire new rocket, approximately once per month, and rebuilds the existing rockets about every 3 days, and then sells rides on whichever rocket passes the definition of done at the time of the launch. And this Justice Board is the entire operating system of the fastest growing aerospace company on planet Earth and in the history of engineering. There is no project management group. There's definitely no big room planning. There are no PSIs. There are no Agile coaches. There are no Scrum Masters. The goal is to get near 100% engineers, and they self-organize around these stacks of goals that all link to a 1,000-year plan. So what would you do next? If you're an Agile coach and you're in an existing company, and the existing company isn't ready to change everything, here's what I would recommend. Pick a pilot project with the funding groups in your company, with the actual owners in the company, and for that pilot, attempt to have the people putting money in agree on a 1,000-year goal and what the bottlenecking KPI is, the key performance indicator. What's your cost per kilogram into low Earth orbit? Then create an actions list. We Agile coaches know many methods to facilitate this. The actions list would be what you need the executives to do to reduce risk that this new Agile pilot will be successful. For example, automate KPI data collection and automate display. Try to get paperwork signed to give the new Agile company full budget and policy independence. This new Agile company can't be more Agile than its policies. If it requires 10 approvals over 4 weeks to make a product change, you can't have a release shorter than 4 weeks or a learning cycle shorter than 4 weeks. This is what Toyota did. Toyota created an entirely new Agile company now called Woven Planet, Toyota Woven Planet, and it doesn't have to use any of the policies inside Toyota. And they loaded it with former Google engineers and the slated next CEO of Toyota, Daisuke Toyota, the son of the previous CEO of Toyota, to learn how to manage an Agile company. And then step 3 would be make the work visible on your Justice Board. How many Mob AI teams are funded in the new organization? Do you have at least one? Do you have 100? At what rate are the KPIs improving? And then you do divide this by the cost to run each Mob AI team. That tells you the financial efficiency of the company. Then your accounting is actually done. That is actually the entire financial reporting of the company. How many teams are running? How much money is each team consuming per week, or in the case of Tesla, per second? It's averaged, right, but it is reported per second. And divided by how quickly are the KPIs improving. That tells you which teams are more financially efficient. And you don't use that to reward the teams or penalize the teams. You use that, the employees themselves use that to look at the teams that are highly efficient and learn from them and rotate through those teams. So it's not an incentives structure, it's just people like to do good work. Now, if you're interested in starting your own company, or if you are already the funding owner of a company, then you can go straight to it. You don't have to do any of this pilot project stuff at all. You write your master plan. What's your 1,000-year goal? Done. You can do that in an executive workshop with any other investors or sponsors. Then put the top KPI on your own Justice Board. Self-organize Mob AI teams around it. And run Mob AI. Fund one or more Mob AI teams. You can do Mob AI all by yourself. This is the 12-step program. There's going to be a summary of it in Prague next week. Here, how to start with Mob AI. Even if you're using Waterfall, you can do group work assisted by AI teams. So anyone here could do this tonight or tomorrow. You can introduce this without changing anything else. And you can do it alone also. Here's how Mob AI works. Here's how to get started in Mob AI. Hashtag Mob AI is likely the only skill that you need. Here is how to start. Choose a useful goal that might be achievable in less than 8 hours if you had skill in it already. Start by setting a 45-minute timer and asking an AI. Google Bard or OpenAI's ChatGPT are fine for now. Questions about how to make progress and do what the AIs suggest. After 45 minutes, take a 15-minute break. Then do it again. Do it for 4 or even 8 hours, a full workday, if you can, or possibly even 12 rounds, a 12-hour shift, like I did while working at Tesla. You'll be amazed at how far you've gotten. Use this to make progress each day towards a worthwhile goal. You can even ask for help finding like-minded people. Ideally, you would do this in a group, remote or in person, of 3 to 5 humans. Then you would use the mob roles like driver, navigator, and mob AI. If you would like to mob AI with me, you can do it online anytime at this link. Here, I'll zoom in case anyone can actually read that from where you are. Later in October, I'll be doing it live in Prague. For anyone who would like to mob AI with me, we can do it together in Prague. Then in Stockholm, then in Munich, and then in Bern in November. But we can do it online together anytime, remote mobbing. You can get a hold of me for any questions we don't have time for here at these links. I respond fastest on X, formerly Twitter, but you can reach me through any of these. And in Poland, I'm lucky enough to partner with Procognita. They've already trained many people in Agile hardware development, which is now called JoeDX. Everybody, thank you very much, and I'd like to see if there's any comments or questions. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe, a lot. We had enough questions for another day of the conference, so we're not going to do all of them. But still, there is one coming from the legal department. I'm going to start with this one. And they say, how come you are not limited by NDA and can talk on how Tesla works?
Elon has open sourced most of Tesla's patents and all of the processes used in the Musk companies. Elon says it's not about Tesla selling electric cars, it's about transitioning the world to sustainable energy. So when Mercedes-Benz sells an electric car, Tesla counts that as a win. They're the only company I know that does that. They're actually, as truly, my experience in the company, not financially driven. They cheer if you help make a better heat pump for a competitor that makes their electric cars longer range, that makes people choose to buy an electric car instead of a gasoline or diesel car. So that's why it's been intentionally open sourced.
All right, so we can put the video online later on and don't get a call from Elon? Thank you.
Yes, that is exactly my understanding.
Just checking. All right, so I will move to the next one, which is, what was your role at Tesla?
I was what's called a, do I remember the role? Yeah, like whatever you're hired to do, and there is a title, and I'll remember mine, production associate. Whatever you're hired to do, you then enter the company, and you see the list of KPIs, and you're told, go where you think you can add value. Like, there's no one to tell you what to do. It's like attending an open space conference. So my role was the same as almost every other employee, production associate. And I couldn't find any Agile there. So I contacted a team that was handling IT email requests and said, can I create an email inbox, Agile at Tesla? This was actually a test of mine to see if there was an Agile group anywhere. And they said, sure, it's yours. So I started coordinating Agile practices to see if I could add any value to this incredibly lean and efficient process that was already running. It turned out there was a little bit that an Agile coach like me could do that was helpful. I was able to improve the definition of ready and definition of done and the AI testing of that. But these processes I've shown, I did not create. There truly is no Agile in the Musk companies. It's simply this engineering-focused culture that creates hardware products in shorter iterations than I've ever seen anywhere, which to me is the definition of Agile. So it's too Agile for the frameworks we know, But I think it's like the Agile we all wanted, maybe.
All right, thanks. I love this one. What is the overall hashtag justice takeaway from this presentation for not Tesla people? In other words, what I would say, what is your key takeaway for software people?
The skill that I think everybody in here can try is Mob AI. If you're not using Mob as defined by Woody Zuhl, I'd suggest trying it and incorporate whatever AI tools speed you up. And I think everybody could do that. The next is, if your company feels slow compared to a Musk company, you now have the recipe to start your own company.
Sounds simple. Are we good with two, or you want to add the third one?
I think that's already pretty.
We'll
big.
just give them a second to think about it. All right.
Like a lot of us as Agile coaches get frustrated in different types of companies because we can't make all the change that we think would be helpful. I think more Agile coaches should make companies. I hope groups of people here get together and they each put $100 together and say, what can we make in less than 30 days? And do it. Use your awesome knowledge. And especially if you use something like Mob AI, I think you'll be very successful in far less than 30 days. I think we need more of that. Like, there's a reason Steve Jobs initially got fired from Apple, and then Apple slowed down after Steve Jobs left. Like, real Agile is hard to do in someone else's company. There's a reason Elon doesn't work inside any other company. Elon had to make another company. Like, real Agile is possible in someone else's company, but that is rare. I think there should be more Agile coaches making companies than coaching someone else's company.
Aren't you afraid that if the Agile coaches will create the company, then everybody will be just asking questions? How do you feel about it? What do you think? What we can reflect on that?
Ideally, 100% of staff is engineering directly on the product or service.
Hands-on Agile coaches. That's a crazy idea. How about coding? More programming with your team? That's a crazy idea. Okay. That is interesting one. I find a plenty of project manager open position at Tesla career page. What do they do if they are no project manager at Tesla at the same time?
People respond to job postings to get the type of skill that Tesla wants to build in. That doesn't mean that's your role once you're inside the company. So if Tesla needs people that understands interdependencies and understands the interdependencies of their vendors and suppliers, they'll put postings for project managers. Once you're in the company, you're definitely not making Gantt charts.
All right, we're getting to the more difficult and more difficult. The moment you see they are too difficult, just tell me. I will tell them that we run out of the time and we finish the conference. All right, so the next one. This wasn't so high just a second before, but now it's a question: why did you left Tesla, SpaceX?
I could say I burned out, and that's at least half true. The 12-hour workdays are a thing. Yeah, you get 4 days off. 4 days off one week, 3 days off the next week. And if you spend that recovering like an athlete would, you're probably fine. I mean, there were people that had been there since Tesla was founded, and there are people that have been in SpaceX since it was founded. So it is possible. But I made a mistake one 4-day weekend. Yosemite National Park is very near Fremont, California. And I was like, I have 4 days. I'm going to go hiking. And it was really hot, and it was really sunny, and I didn't bring enough water. And I realized I'd been performing at a really intense level all week, and I couldn't just go enjoy a 4-day weekend like I would have after a normal job that I'd had before. And I crashed really, really, really hard. And then the stock price went up 800%. And I said, I don't need to work. Do I really need this in my life? And I thought for a little while, and I retired.
Regarding the crash and regarding the crash and the stock price rise, do you think there is a correlation or causation?
Oh, my physical crash and the stock price rise. Yeah. So actually, I don't know if anyone here follows Tesla news, like from Tesla or from the media closely. I do, because I had a number of shares in Tesla. And the BBC had been publishing very negative pieces about Tesla. The working conditions are very bad. The Teslas kill people, a series of very negative pieces. And the stock price also was relatively low. And then suddenly, the BBC posted 3 bizarrely positive posts in the same day. And I said, that's it. They've stopped suppressing the price. The Bank of London must have just bought a whole bunch of Tesla shares, and now they're going to try to pump and dump. And that's exactly what happened. All the other paid, okay, media is weird, and I don't claim to know how all media works. But when I worked for Bill Gates, we did buy a lot of media. And I was on a team that did it. Like we did it, okay, part of that's under NDA. But you buy things. You buy news from what sound like news outlets. All of them. All of them. And suddenly, all the news outlets started publishing extremely, bizarrely positive news about Tesla. Like, Teslas smell like flowers all the time. And, like, truly that ridiculous. And I knew the large funding groups that had been buying a lot of media were going to do what we call a pump and dump, which is exactly what happened.
So what you're saying is not about what you did, but about what media do you have?
For stock price on less than 10 years horizon is currently more affected by paid media than by company performance. Stock price on a 10-year or longer horizon, my current operating theory, which is working very well for me right now, is linked to company performance. What that means is if you're a CEO that doesn't have permission to have really bad press for at least 10 years, you cannot be bold. And that's what happened to Herbert Diess at Volkswagen. Herbert didn't own Volkswagen like Elon owns Tesla. Herbert responds to the board that owns Volkswagen, the Piech family. And the Piech family didn't like the negative press, especially from the unions, that Herbert was getting for going agile and having faster paces of innovation inside Volkswagen. And they canned him, they fired him. I think if you're going to be really ambitious, you've got to self-fund. You can't use someone else's money unless they specifically have patience to handle bad press, really bad press, for about 10 years. Because over that timeline, it does look like the stock price does reflect the product.
I get the reflection that talking about the owning the media today in this country can be a little risky, but that's a separate story. You're welcome. So the next one is related to this one. So Tesla is efficient, but has a reputation of having a quality problems and rebuilding quality. So this you mentioned, but what are they doing to address those quality models except for the better perception?
What Toyota does is they have a 1-year test cycle. It's required to be a year long. So anytime there's changes made to any Toyota model, they need to be tested for a year. What we Agilists have seen is that testing quality isn't related to the time it takes to test, it's related to the quality of the test. Looks like we went black, I don't know why. Oh.
Can we get the screen up again?
Yeah, in case it comes up, there's now
that was paid till 5 only, sorry.
It's all right, it's all right. So the idea is to have really high quality testing as fast as you possibly can. And currently, by non-bought news services, Tesla has the highest quality and safety ratings in the world. There's a company in the United States called Consumer Reports, and they're a nonprofit. And what they used to do is they would buy a vacuum cleaner. And in fact, they would buy 20 vacuum cleaners. And they would use them until they break, and then would report the cost to make them work again. And they'd report how long it took for them to break. And they'd also measure how loud they were, and they'd make the same floor, the same level of dirt, and measure the effectiveness of the vacuum cleaner. And they also did that with cars. And when the Tesla Model S came out, it was the highest scoring car in safety and quality and ride comfort and noise that Consumer Reports had ever tested. It scored over 100 points on their scale because they'd put a curve in their scale because all cars had a certain level of noise and a certain level of cost of ownership. And the Tesla Model S broke their scale. It went over 100. So what happened? The Ford Foundation bought Consumer Reports, and there hasn't been a top-scoring Tesla since. They all have horrible quality ratings. Like, I don't mean to be conspiracy theorist. It's just hard to get good media. It's difficult, right? But the actual quality and safety scores, Teslas are the best. There's no safer car. There's no quieter car. There's no longer lasting car. I mean, they don't even have oil changes, and the brake pads just take a very long time to wear out because of the regenerative braking. Like, there's nothing that comes close to the ownership experience. I'm on my third Tesla right now. They're phenomenal. I've never had a maintenance issue like for anything. There's no oil changes. Like, it doesn't cost anything. If you have solar panels, you don't even pay gas. Like, it's just free. Some of you might have seen there was a case where a family was in a Tesla Model Y, and they're wondering if the husband intentionally drove the car off a cliff or not. Like, it's this horrible news event. So possibly this husband was like trying to injure their own family. And they couldn't do it. The car was so safe, it went off the cliff and everybody was fine. And they're like, oh no. And it's this horrible news story. But the cars are that good. Like, and you've seen maybe the films trying to show how horrible this is. And it's this huge cliff. And everybody was fine. There is no other car in the world that could do that. And I don't know how many of you know, the Tesla Roadster, if it ever comes out, it can fly. Like, do you know that? They took the same compressed air thrusters that SpaceX uses to maneuver in space when they dock with the space station. So there's these it's the electric motor of the Tesla Model S compressing air, they call it cold gas thrusters, in a wounded carbon fiber tank, all of which is made in-house in SpaceX. None of it's bought from vendors. And it maneuvers the Dragon around to dock with the space station. They're like, what would happen if we put him on the Roadster? And they're like, well, it'd fly. And they're like, okay, let's do that. Like, that's how cool these cars are. Right? And it takes that much paid media to try to make it not look that awesome because they're that awesome. Like, I have a Tesla now. It's the fastest accelerating production car in the world. Period. There's nothing that's faster. And it seats 5. It's this big, comfortable car. And when you accelerate, it's faster than skydiving. I did go skydiving after I retired, and I was terrified. And you're at 1 G, 1 gravity, falling towards the Earth, and for me, that's terrifying. Well, the Tesla Model S Plaid is what it's called, accelerates at 1.1 Gs. It's faster than skydiving. And because you can control it, for me, it's less scary somehow. But you're like, and then you do that movie effect, like anytime you want. It's really fun.
All right. I believe we have time for 2 more. So this one. Do you think employees were happy working in Tesla? Did anyone work on that, so happiness of people? Or it was only to increase the productivity or the product efficiency?
The 1,000-year goal is really useful for the happiness level. not everyone is aligned with the 1,000-year goals that Elon has taken, but the people that are tend to want to work there. So if you're excited about transitioning society to renewable energy, sustainable energy, then it's a really exciting place to work. And it's a very happy place to work because you see these KPIs climbing every day. And that works really well. In fact, where burnout is a risk is because you're making progress so much you want to keep going. Like, it's really enjoyable. It's actually the most fun I've ever had at work. I don't know if anybody here likes to play Legos, but it's like being inside your favorite Lego set. Like, it's because people aren't telling you what to do. Like, you kind of get to be a master builder. You can kind of just like do things. And you have all these cool robots and metal and plastic and batteries to like play with. And if you're aligned with the goal, it's super satisfying. So that's more the risk. I think if you weren't aligned with the goal and you were just there to try to build up enough stock and wait for the next stock surge, I think you would be super unhappy. Like, imagine if you hated Legos and then you were asked to play with Legos for 12 hours, right? I mean, I think that would be miserable. But my experience was all of the Musk companies seem to have self-filled with people who really care about those companies' missions. And I saw a lot of really happy people, myself included.
So it's not about football, yoga, or the Fruit Friday or Fruit Thursday. Strange. Okay, the last one, because of the time constraint, and you still can catch this guy because he's staying, I believe, after the conference. So the last one, about the constraints between the teams, between the models. So how the team knows about the constraint or limitation of their models. For example, how big seats, how to explore how big seats we can use, which will fill the other models, right? So we have the dependencies.
Okay, so the simple mind model is if you think of a laptop and a mouse. And yeah, it should be wireless, but in this example, think it has a USB cable. USB 2, like the square one. Imagine that. And then you're on the mouse team, and you change to a new mouse, and as long as it's USB, the laptop doesn't even care that the mouse changed, right? You can even change the laptop, and the mouse doesn't have to change, as long as they use USB. Then you can change the USB 2 cable to USB-C cable, as long as you put an adapter on each end. So the interface can even change. And then you can change the mouse to a USB-C mouse and throw away the interface, or recycle or repurpose the interface. And the same on the laptop. So that's the first piece of the answer. Then the second part is, how do you know when it changes? All the tests on the interfaces, it's all test-driven development, all of it. The tests in the interface are all checked in. And if you're working on a seat, you can see if the interfaces on the floors of the Semi and the Model Y and the Model S or Model X, if they're changing, because you can see the tests if that part is done. You can see if it's changing. But those teams still don't coordinate with you. I experienced many times entire new parts arriving that I'd never seen before. I worked every single production position in Fremont, California, or I took notes on it, every single position. So I saw a lot of new parts. And when a brand new part arrives, which is multiple times a day, it has an interface. It's usually like a piece of aluminum that adapts the holes and the electrical connectors from whatever it was before to the new one, or sorry, from the new one to whatever it was before. So your seat still fits. And now you know by looking at the tests, do we want to start changing the seat or not yet? And as the seat mob team, you choose when to change. And you don't even need to ever communicate with the floor team, the floor module, which is on top of the battery pack. The seat actually connects to the battery pack directly. What we would do, as crazy as this sounds, this is the lean solution, is the interface would stay in that car to be sold until the seat changed interface to match. And then the interfaces that arrived with the battery pack would be set on the factory floor next to where the seats were attached by robots. And when you saw a big stack of interfaces, you knew that the other team no longer needed the interfaces and you'd stop shipping interfaces. Like that was it. it sounds impossible when we're used to multi-year plans and you have groups of engineers and release train engineers making plans of architectural changes. So I do think it's easier to envision it if we just think of kids playing Lego. You have one group of kids over here making car bodies and another group of kids over here making Lego car seats. And they change the number of bumps on the top that connect, and so they make an adapter Lego piece. And then when you see the adapters pile up over there, you're like, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. Like, it's very self-managing.
All right. Thank you once again. We have more questions, but I'm not going to ask them because of the time constraints. So, Joe, thank you very much for your talk.